And we are rolling.
Welcome to the Big Stick Organization Square Deal Radio. I'm your host, Henry McCarthy, and I'm joined here with my co-host, Kay. And I'm looking at the top stories section right now, and I can already see some good stories.
All right.
First, go ahead.
No, I was just saying all right.
All right. So the first one I wanted to see, just want to make a quick mention, is Russian hypersonic missile accidentally strikes Russia.
I cannot say I'm very surprised.
Social media users have speculated that an object that crashed in a Russian city around 220 miles from the Ukrainian border may have been a stray Russian hypersonic missile.
This is what happens when GPS completely fails. I honestly do not think that any form of like Russian sanity or intimidation of other nations will continue after this war for a good amount of time. I mean, you thought Afghanistan was bad. No, man. This is the complete humiliation of Soviet doctrine.
Yeah, like first Finland, then Afghanistan, and now Ukraine.
Trolling. Oh yeah, you forgot Poland in 1921. I think it was 21.
Yeah, Poland.
Where they lost half of Ukraine to Poland.
Pretty much the entire part of Eastern Europe as well, like Estonia, the Baltic countries. Nope, they didn't get those either.
Yep. Complete loss. They almost lost Chechnya if they didn't flat up hire the Chechens to kill the Chechens. Man, can you imagine if they lost to Chechnya? That would have been just a complete embarrassment. I mean, it's like the size of Massachusetts.
This goes to show that like Russia isn't as big a threat as like the media makes it out to be. Granted, they have nuclear weapons.
Well, yeah, but it's a paper tiger. I mean, they drop one nuke, we drop 20. Easy. Nuclear weapons are becoming less and less of like a big thing for a country to have.
Like my grandma, she's scared of Russia. She's like, "Oh, we can't go to war with Russia. Russia's too powerful." It's like,
that's why one of my. You go ahead.
I guess I had to destroy this article. Then that would change your mind.
Yeah. Well, I mean, my friend's mom is like terrified of the U.S. going to war with China. She's like, but they have millions. I'm like, but we have millions of bullets. But the belief, the Cold War beliefs are still there. China will outnumber us 10 to 1, and Russia will just nuke us into oblivion. Mutually assured destruction. That doctrine was so hardly ingrained into the American psyche that we still have that constant fear of, they have nukes, they'll kill us all. Despite the fact that we have things that can stop nukes. People forget that very easily.
I love the emoji reactions people gave this. Let's see. 219 people gave it a thumbs up. 265 people gave it a heart.
265 people said love to Russia.
11 people had a tear emoji or crying emoji, and 13 people had angry emojis.
The 15 people are KGB agents. Anger. Bro, this is fake news. Source, I made it up.
I should start mentioning the sources we get these from. This one's from Newsweek. And the article title is, Russian hypersonic missile accident strikes Russia, as I said before.
Nice.
So, this next one is actually about Russia. That was actually short. But, so next we have an article from the Washington Post. Short of soldiers to send to war, Russia's mercenaries recruit in prisons.
Oh my gosh. It's like that reminds me directly of like the Japanese World War II propaganda, where they said that the Marines were all coming out of psych wards because the Marines are so crazy. Oh my goodness. But yeah, no, it wouldn't surprise me if Russia started emptying prisons, because at this point, I mean, if it's a meat grinder, you gotta realize, hey, that's population control.
Didn't
I mean,
Ukraine already do the same thing?
well, I mean, not only Ukraine, but Russia in World War II did that. They emptied the prisons to flush out the Red Army some, threw the prisoners into penal battalions, and just kamikazed them into the enemy. Well, history repeats itself.
That's why so many people are kind of scared of Russia. Large population,
Yeah.
plenty of manpower, definitely plenty of rifles. Like I think you told me once that Russia's probably still got a ton of Mosins just sitting in storage.
Oh, dude. Here's the thing with Russia. They have sold off so many of their arms. I kind of do wonder how many do they have left, like in country. Because you got to remember, all of the warlords in Africa, they've been buying their guns through the pipeline from Russia. How much does Russia still have? Because we know they have millions upon millions, but do they have billions like they used to? Or did they even have billions, or did they just lie about that? It's
Well, even if they only had 3 million, that's still 3 million guys that can arm.
Yeah. Today's armies are so small in comparison to how big armies used to be that it's, 3 million would be a lot. Because
Yes, I would definitely agree. Armies in the past, you would just fatten up your ranks with a bunch of conscripts, but now it's small professional armies are the thing.
Well, I mean, after World War II fixed that. China had a army of what, 14 million on paper, but their quality was so terrible that their estimates were actually like 1.5 million, but 14 million on paper because that's how many they had rifles and ammunition for. So yeah, cheap conscript armies are not it. I mean, Saddam Hussein proved that even with his fourth largest army in the world, which fought 3 wars in a row and lost all three.
Which
Yeah.
goes to show that, again, Russia's not as big as a threat as we made it out to be.
Yeah. Well, I mean, none of the really big armies beyond the US are that truly terrifying. I mean, look, what is it? Russia, China, Pakistan? All three of those are not terribly effective. Pakistan lost to India. China lost to India. Russia lost to everyone. It just keeps going. Oh, and China lost to Vietnam, obviously. 1979.
Yeah, I keep forgetting that.
Oh, yeah, it's really easy to forget, but China did lose. Well, I mean, it's kind of a hotly debated thing because the Chinese kind of like went in before realizing this was a bad idea, and they devoted so little of their energy into the war that it was almost like, is this just a border crisis? No, they are actually invading, but China actually used almost no air power during that war. Literally. Devoted like none of their air power, despite the fact that they had a decently sized air force at the time. Uh, well, not for a nation of that size, but still, in comparison to a lot of other nations that they neighbored, they had a large air force. They just didn't use it in Vietnam because they didn't want to waste it.
All right, so back to the article. Let me read you some snippets. To address Russia's shortage of soldiers to send to war in Ukraine, the Wagner mercenary group seems to be making an offer that it hopes convicted criminals can't refuse, a get-out-of-jail card. I think this is a quotation from them. After 6 months of war, you receive a pardon, and there is no option for you to return to prison. A man dressed in tan-colored fatigues said, addressing a crowd of Russian inmates standing underneath a poster that read, "Choose life." Those who arrive at the front line and say on day one, it's not for them to get shot, the man added.
Well, I mean that literally sounds like in World War II when they'd show up at the gulags and say, "Okay, who wants to live?"
With Russian President Vladimir Putin refusing to declare national draft, fearing such a move would be politically toxic, Wagner has been playing an increasingly crucial and public role in Russia's invasion of Ukraine.
Yeah, he's trying not to go full mobilization. Putin has. Because if he goes full mobilization, other people do too, and that's not good.
Would that even be effective? I mean, we literally just talked about how
Okay,
bigger armies are always being used.
let me put it this way. When Russia goes full mobilization, things get done. we're talking. Okay, Russia before the war had somewhere near 900,000. We're talking like 7 million Russians instead of 900,000 Russians. Sooner or later, you do start to drown the enemies. Rzhev meat grinder. Uh, a lot of their World War II battles, in fact, where they just kept going and going. It does on occasion actually prove effective. So, like, just Russians sending in more conscripts, maybe not so effective like they are now, but if they actually went full send mobilization alongside their full send mobilization mechanized stuff as they are now, it would get really ugly.
But here's the real question: is it even worth it? I mean, what do they see to gain? The Donbass region, the pro-Russian government, Ukraine?
I'm pretty sure they already have what is necessary in the Donbass region. Honestly, they need to just flat out declare the Donetsk People's Republic and the Luhansk, I believe, People's Republic as independent, say that the separatists got their independence and get out of there. They've literally done what they went in to do, and that's it. That they shouldn't have kept going at any
Even
point.
If they were to win a total victory and they were to, for whatever reason, annex the entirety of Ukraine, they spent all this effort just to gain a unruly population that's not going to appreciate Russian.
They got a pile of burning dirt, essentially, with a bunch of angry insurgents hidden in it.
Welcome. It would be like welcome to a bigger Chechnya.
Yeah, I mean, the Ukraine, I could see it just, being the Ukraine, but I mean, yeah, it is something to gain because like 50 years from now, if they have Ukraine, it will make a big difference. They're trying to rebuild the Eastern Bloc. Only Serbia really likes them that much, and Belarus,
Belarus
obviously.
Too. Yeah, Belarus. Kazakhstan's got pretty friendly relations with Russia.
They're not the Eastern Bloc though. We're talking in between Russia and the EU. And
well,
Poland's...
I thought you were referring to like former Soviet nations.
No. That would be the communist bloc. But yeah, Eastern Bloc is just like the spot, the little Warsaw Pact nations between Germany and Russia. Sadly, sadly for the Russians, not sadly for us, we're in luck. Sadly for the Russians, almost all of them have joined NATO or EU or something and escaped the possibility of Russian assimilation.
Yeah, and Serbia wasn't even really part of the Eastern Bloc. I mean, you have
It was part of Yugoslavia. Well, I mean, look at Yugoslavia. Look at their weaponry, look at their doctrine, look at their leaders. They were basically an Eastern Bloc. I mean, they weren't technically a Warsaw Pact, I don't believe, but they were
Tito
pretty close.
and Stalin fell out. They did not like each other.
Yeah.
I don't know how many times Stalin tried to assassinate Tito.
Yeah, it's kind of like us and Castro. That.
Yeah, I would. When you look at like a map of the Warsaw Pact nations, you see just like a big gap between, like Bulgaria and Romania, and then Albania, because Yugoslavia wasn't part of it.
Yeah. But I mean, back to the topic at hand. Any more articles?
Yep. I will find one more. All right. There's definitely lots of stuff about Queen Elizabeth.
Oh goodness.
May she rest in peace.
Yes. She has served her country wonderfully. Always felt like she was above all the political strife in the nation. Something that the new king doesn't quite have with him. He doesn't have that grace that she did when handling, politics.
Some people, there have been whispers of the monarchy being dissolved, but I don't see happening because the monarchy is very.
Oh no, that's just Prince Charles is weak. Let's exploit his weakness. Nah, the monarchy's not going to be dissolved. I mean, places like the Isle of Man wouldn't stand for it. I mean,
Oh, no, not the Isle of Man.
the Isle of Man. It's just three legs on a flag. But
Yeah, I love their flag.
oh gosh, I'm gonna have to try and edit that into one of the videos and put that as the thumbnail. Oh goodness, but yeah, I mean there are so many islands that belong to the British that don't actually belong to the British Empire or even the British Parliament. They belong to the Crown and the Crown alone. If the Crown was to dissolve, there would be a bit of an whoopsie because those little areas owned by the Crown have their own parliaments and therefore their own governments, which means if the Crown doesn't own them, they have no ties to Britain and become their own nations, which is big, big not good. So because they want to be part of Britain, they want to be part of the UK, but they don't want to. They want to have their own bit of autonomy. They want to have their own parliaments and such. So having to merge them forcibly or become independent, neither of those is a good option. This weird middle ground they have now is what they enjoy. So the crown's probably going to stick around for a bit.
All right, so I have our next article here. It's Montana defies order on transgender birth certificates.
What? Oh
So
my.
I'll read you the heading here. Just hours after a Montana judge blocked health officials from enforcing a state rule that would prevent transgender people from changing the gender on their birth certificate, the state on Thursday said it would defy the order.
Oh gosh. Birth certificates cannot be altered. I mean, I respect an individual's want to express themselves, but you don't mess with social security number. You don't mess with birth certificates. You do not. The second you start messing with that stuff is the start that it could really mess up the system because things are logged everywhere and they'd have to be relogged everywhere. Otherwise, things don't match up anymore and the system starts to have issues. Um, yeah, that's not good. I mean, no offense to anybody who's transgender watching this, but that is not the way to express your identity. No offense or anything. I mean, I'm not trying to provoke anybody here, but I mean, what's your belief on that?
Well, there's a difference from expressing yourself and making a permanent decision that will affect you forever.
Yeah,
That's a big choice to make.
I mean, throwing that on your birth certificate, man, that's something else. Uh, and is it getting passed through, or what's the current status on that? Is it a bill? Like, I must.
The wording kind of confused me.
Yeah, me
Just
too.
enforcing a state rule that would prevent transgender people from changing the gender on the birth certificate. So a judge blocked people from preventing transgender people from changing their birth certificate. So the judge is,
Oh my
wanting that to
goodness.
happen.
Yeah, the judge wants it to happen. Why would a government official want that much paperwork? Oh
And
my
then
gosh.
the state, it said the state on Thursday said it would defy the order. So the state is defying this judge's order.
Yeah, so it's not going to happen. That
So
makes sense.
I also wanted to note the reactions on this one. So 44 people gave it a thumbs up. 12 people gave it a heart. And 40 people gave it angry faces.
40 people don't know how the system works, I'm afraid.
Well, it's like the majority here are for the defying of the order.
I mean, on the surface, it looks like a very good, transgender rights thing, but when you think about how much goes into it, there will be issues. And as you said, it's a permanent decision if you're changing it. But if it's not permanent, you can just swap it around whenever you want. Criminals will exploit that.
It's just taking something way too far.
Well, I mean, if your name is blank, especially with a name like Bill or something that could be male or female, and you're born on this date and all this, but all your documents says male, and then you swap it to female, and all your old documentation says male, you have like almost, if it wasn't for social security numbers, there would be some serious issues because you could just say, no, I'm a female, so on my birth certificate. So thank goodness for social security, but yeah, that I could see that getting exploited if it actually went through, like really badly.
It's funny you said thank goodness for social security because it's used as an ID, even though that's not what it was meant for at all.
Well,
but yeah, we use it for ID anyway.
It's kind of the bailout card for when. Well, I mean, it's the bailout card for when your birth certificate fails. So, yeah, if this ever was to get passed, Social Security would just go like all out. That number would become very, very crucial because then you can just, once you can change one thing, there's possibility to change other things. You know, I'm not sure if you can. Can you change your name on your birth certificate? I don't think you can do that. I know you can change your legal name. I know you can change your legal name, but not your birth name, can you?
I'm not sure. You'd have to ask like a legal professional on that.
Yeah, because I mean, if you can change your name on your birth certificate, then I take all of that stuff back. Because I mean, the second you're changing one thing, it doesn't matter. But if you can't, then well, I mean, it's just like if you're changing your name, but it's still the same on the birth certificate, then your gender should stay the same too. Because if one thing can't be changed, then nothing should be changed, roughly. It's kind of all or nothing sort of situation. Otherwise, it doesn't make much sense. Personal opinion, anyways. But if that makes any sense.
The whole thing is just dumb. Like it's going.
Well,
it's
I mean,
a movement based on feelings.
the biggest thing is, if you're a transgender person, who's going to who's going to break into your house and literally dig through your belongings and find your birth certificate and be like, oh no, you're a dude. Like, no, I keep that in a fire safe. Nobody's getting to my birth certificate. Like, if I was transgender, I wouldn't care necessarily, simply because nobody is ever going to see it.
I mean, it's not that bad if you want to do something like that. You want to change your identity or something in the privacy of your own home. It's another thing when you wave it around in someone's face and you're trying to get people's kids to try to shove your ideals down the throats of other people and their children, like that video we made earlier.
Oh gosh.
Talking about it. But it's also a 20 steps further when you want to change the legal bureaucracy because of the way you feel.
Yeah, it seems almost like it's that sort of we gotta prove a point rather than we're actually doing something. The actual progress as far as trans rights that this would go for, I don't see this benefiting trans rights that much, but I see it making a point. The judge is making a point on her stance. People that are promoting this are making a point on their stance, rather than it actually doing any good or bad.
It's just, the movement just keeps getting more and more ridiculous. I mean, at first it was like, we want the right to
do surgery.
We want the right to want the right to, or even with the whole LGBTQ plus community, it's we want the right to be gay without being persecuted. And then it's like now we're gonna air our stuff propaganda on public television and children's programs. Now we're gonna change illegal drugs. What comes next? What's after that?
Well, they like the attention. What can I say? Yeah,
each demand gets more and more ridiculous.
It has gotten to the point where you have to wonder if they're just looking for attention rather than actual progress. And what would progress even look like once you've gained everything essentially that you need? Because, I mean, they've got marriage, surgery, well, capabilities of surgery. They don't have free surgery everywhere, but then again, we don't have socialized medicine here, so free healthcare is kind of a pipe dream. But, they've got marriage legalized in almost every state, isn't it?
I'm not well versed on individual state laws.
Adoption agencies will take gay couples, both lesbian and male on male. They've essentially gotten the majority of their rights that they've wanted for. Freedom of speech is, obviously one. And, persecution really is not that big of a thing that I've seen anyways. I mean, within conservative communities, there is a bit of, throwing stones, but then again, you can't go into a Christian way of life and kind of just expect them to drop everything about their religion to accept you for who you are. I mean, you wouldn't go to Iraq and expect the Muslims to accept you for who you are. So, why do it to a Christian community?
That's just a risk you take whenever you step in that community. Some people aren't going to like that, and there's nothing you can do about that.
Yeah, well, I mean, once again, freedom of speech. So, as far as gay rights goes, I mean, they've kind of gotten everything. Now they're just getting attention, it almost feels like. I mean, I'm not sure. I'm not the biggest guy to know about that sort of stuff. But it does kind of feel like they're just looking for attention or something to get them into the media rather than actually progressing their agenda. More of just spreading awareness of their agenda. And what is even their agenda to do at this point? Once once the revolution is over, what do you do now? Question mark. I don't know. What's your opinion on that?
Well, do you remember Gay Wedding Cake? The controversy over that?
Gosh, that is such a nightmare.
I would imagine a lot of them point to that issue as like, oh look, we're still being quote unquote oppressed, or still not equal.
No offense, but like in modern terms, that is pretty long ago, and then on top of that, that's just somebody refusing to do service.
I mean, props to them for holding their beliefs, because a more opportunistic person would like, sure, you're paying, I'll do whatever you want.
Yeah, well, I mean, I would expect nothing less of a devout Christian. I mean, it's in the Holy Book. I, as a Christian, go along with it. You can't expect people to compromise on their beliefs for a few extra bucks. I mean, that idea that people can just be bought out for money it's ridiculous. And, they're usually the sort of people to say, we can't be bought out via money. Well, neither can us Christians. So, there's that. So, yeah, I definitely give them props for standing in the face of such adversity. But I wouldn't count that as oppression of somebody. Saying that you won't do a certain good or service, I mean, you just turn to another person that will. In the capitalistic, highly atheistic nation that we live in today, I mean, it's not too hard to just pay a few extra bucks and go somewhere else.
Yeah, isn't that the beauty of free market capitalism?
Yep. If somebody,
if you don't like the way someone serves you, then go somewhere else.
Yep. I do not like the way that the White Castle works around here. They're low quality food and low quality uh, customer service, and so I eat at the McDonald's and the Dairy Queen instead.
And the White Castle knows that it lost your business, hopefully, and so it's either up to them.
It honestly doesn't care, and I don't care that it doesn't care because I've got better service somewhere else. But
Yeah, that's a bigger problem with big businesses. They don't care if they lose someone's business.
well, I
They
mean,
don't care.
just like that customer, if they had decided I'm going to go somewhere else and get my cake, the person who is refusing to sell them wouldn't care. The customer wouldn't care. Nobody would care. Everybody would be fairly happy with what they're getting, and there would be no issue. Um, but nonetheless, in this scenario, people get hurt, people get angry, and it's just such a poor way to use the capitalist system when it's designed to serve both the consumer and the marketer at the same time.
But yet in the media, capitalism is portrayed as only serving the rich.
Well, obviously, but it serves both the consumer and the producer, the seller and the buyer. And that's something that's important to note is how useful that is. It's so easy to resolve a conflict, but instead things go south. Anyways, I believe that will be our last article. Is it?
Yes, sir.
All right. We have reached roughly the 30-minute mark, so
I'd
I
like
guess.
to thank you all for watching. If you feel so compelled, I would like to ask if you would like button, subscribe, turn on notifications, and please tell anyone who you think would be interested in this video about it, etc., etc. Again, thank you all for watching.
Have a good one.